Hi everybody. Today we're going to talk quickly about wiring up our 7-segment display. So task for today is recognize the 7-segment display, understand the difference between a common cathode and a common anode 7-segment display, wire a 7-segment display, and test each segment to ensure that it is wired properly. Okay, so 7-segment displays are in many electronics, but most recognizably they're in digital clocks, right? So when we look at the number 8, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 separate LEDs that produce this one segment, okay, or 7-segment LEDs, right? So we have our individual segments that make up that 8. And of course, we can utilize these LEDs separately to produce numbers like a 1, to produce 2, 4, whatever it might be. Okay. In our kits, we have a 7-segment display, but it also actually, like, it's a little confusing. It actually consists of 8 segments, including the decimal point. Okay, so we have the decimal point on the side here. Each segment is an LED, and similar to like the RGB LED that we just did last week, all of the LEDs have a shared common leg. Okay, and remember, a common anode is a common positive leg, and a common cathode is a common negative leg, which we have a common cathode 7-segment display. So when we go to wire this up today, this is going to be the pinout that we are following. Let's take a look at the 7-segment display real quick before we come back to this. Okay, so in the bottom right bin, this one here, we need to find our 7-segment display. It's attached to a piece of foam. Sometimes you gotta turn the foam over and look at the other side, but there's the 7-segment display. Don't get confused with the 7-segment display and then the 4-pin 7-segment display. Later on this year, we'll be creating a clock using this one here. But for right now, we're just going to be programming one of these, which is significantly easier than programming that. So we're going to need that. And when we look at this on the back here, and again, we have our 7 segments plus our 8th segment, which is the LED. There's like a protective sheet over the top of this. I think it's easier said than done though. But anyway, so my 7 segments plus my decimal point. So on the back of this thing, we have 10 pins. Okay, and this is the pinout that we really need to be concerned about when we start looking at this other slide here. Okay, so let's take a look at the pinout here. First of all, to the left of the hyphen here is the 7-segment letter. Okay, so like letter E, letter D, letter G, letter F. Okay, then on the right is the Arduino digital pin that we're going to be connecting these things to. Okay, so then on COM, which we have 2 COMs here, and this thing is in the way. We have 2 COM ports, either the top or the bottom. One of those is going to be connected with a 220 ohm resistor to ground. Doesn't matter which one it is, it just needs to be one of them. Okay, the rest of these are going to be connected with wires. So as we go around this process, I would just follow along with this slide and start to wire these pieces up with separate wires and resistors. Okay, I'm going to use my COM port at the top to go to ground because that's easiest. Look at your decimal point. Your decimal point is the bottom right corner. Okay, so when I look at that, and where's mine? And I look here, right, I know that pin 1, which is in the lower left, is segment E, and segment E is going to get connected to pin 2. I'm going to go through that process now. Okay, so now we need to go through and we need to set up our code to run just like a test today. Okay, so we want to just turn segments A through G on each for 1 second. So I'm going to hit the reset button and show you what that looks like. There's segment A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, so we're trying to create a code to do that, right? Which is pretty simple here. So let's just take a quick peek at my code and what I've done here, right? So I have my multi-line comments set up. This is a 7-segment display. We're going to count from 0 through 9 on a 7-segment display using subroutines. We haven't talked about subroutines yet, but we will be within this code, so just put that down there for right now. Hardware, I definitely skimped a little bit on what the hardware is connected to and whatnot. We've got that stuff down here. Hardware, we're using a 7-segment display, a 220 ohm resistor, and 7 wires. That'll be fine. And then here's all of our segments and like where they're being wired to. Okay. One thing I noticed in my when I was running my code originally is that when I was wiring these things up, I got pins B and A mixed up, 6 and 7 here mixed up. So I fixed those and went through, just flip-flopped the wires around, and then everything was good there. So I've got all my integers set up. Okay, then I am going to probably serial print things later on. So I started serial communication. I've created an output, pin mode output for segments A through G. And then I created test code to check my LEDs, all right? So I've turned segment A on, wait a second, turn A off. Turn B on, wait a second, turn B off. C on, wait a second, all the way down through G. And for right now, you can just do that in your void setup, okay? Once things are running to the point where you have your code going again like this, then you're going to be ready to start moving on to the next steps, which is starting to create numbers like the number 0, which would utilize like A, B, C, D, E, and F. The number 1, which would just be like B and C. The number 3, for instance, which would be A, B, G, C, and D. And we can start turning those on. And again, I'm going to teach you guys how to do subroutines so we can pull that information out more later on as well. Okay, so that's it for today's lesson. Get this thing set up, get your code running, and we'll go from there. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Adios.